I'm Maya, I'm 22, and while my brother got a sparkling brand new car for his graduation, the moment I opened my own gift shattered something in me I didn't even know was breakable. You know that feeling when you think you've prepared yourself for disappointment, when you've told yourself not to expect much, but then reality hits you like a freight train anyway? That's exactly what happened to me on what was supposed to be a celebration day for both of us. I watched my parents beam with pride as they handed my brother those shiny car keys, watched them cry actual tears of joy as he hugged them, and then I watched that same excitement drain from their faces the moment they remembered I existed too. What they gave me that day wasn't just thoughtless, it was cruel. It was a reminder that in their eyes, I will never, ever be enough. Before I tell you exactly what happened and how it changed everything, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and comment below where you're watching from. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one because what happened next will probably make your blood boil just as much as mine still does. Let me paint you a picture of my family so you understand exactly how deep this knife cuts. There's my mom, my dad, my brother Jake who's 24, and then there's me, the afterthought. And I'm not being dramatic here, I'm being literal. I have actual proof that I was an accident. I found the pregnancy test in mom's old jewelry box when I was 15, still in the packaging with a note that said shit in my dad's handwriting. Jake has always been the golden child, the prince, the chosen one who could do no wrong. When he was 5 and broke my grandmother's antique vase, my parents said he was exploring his environment. When I accidentally knocked over a glass of water at 7, I was clumsy and careless. When Jake got C's in high school, they celebrated his effort and improvement. When I brought home A's, they barely looked up from whatever Jake was doing. You want to know how twisted this family dynamic is? When Jake graduated high school, they threw him a party with 50 people. Professional photographer, catered food, the works. When I graduated valedictorian 2 years later, my mom bought a sheet cake from the grocery store and invited my aunt. One aunt. That's it. Jake didn't even show up because he had plans with friends, and my parents said I should be understanding because he was busy. College applications? My parents drove Jake to visit 12 different campuses. They took time off work, made it a family bonding experience, stayed in nice hotels. When it was my turn, they handed me a laptop and said, "Good luck." I applied to colleges alone, wrote my essays alone, filled out financial aid forms alone. And somehow, they still managed to make Jake's acceptance letters feel more important than my full scholarship. The pattern never stopped. Jake's birthdays were events, themes, decorations, guest lists. Mine were obligations. Jake's achievements got posted all over their social media with long, gushing captions about how proud they were. My achievements got a "congratulations, sweetie" text message if I was lucky. Christmas morning was the worst. I learned to open my gifts last because watching Jake's face light up with surprise and joy while my parents recorded every second was torture enough without having to fake the same excitement over whatever generic clearance item garbage they grabbed for me the night before. Jake got thoughtful gifts, things he actually wanted, things that showed they listened to him. I got whatever was on sale at Target. But here's the thing that really burns me up. They weren't even subtle about it. Relatives noticed. Teachers noticed. Jake's friends noticed. I remember one time in middle school, Jake's friend asked me why my parents didn't come to my band concert when they never missed Jake's football games. I didn't know what to say because what do you tell someone? That your own parents just don't care about you as much as they care about your brother? I spent years trying to figure out what I did wrong. Was I not pretty enough? Not smart enough? Not charming enough? I changed myself so many times trying to earn their love and attention. I joined clubs Jake liked, tried to be interested in sports, even changed my major in college to something I thought would impress them more. Nothing worked. Nothing I did ever mattered as much as Jake just existing. And Jake? He never stood up for me. Not once. He just basked in all that love and attention like it was his birthright, like he deserved it all and I deserved nothing. He never questioned why I was always the one apologizing, always the one making peace, always the one bending over backwards to keep everyone happy. He just took and never once looked back to see if I was drowning. The worst part is that I convinced myself this was normal for so long. I told myself that maybe I was just being sensitive, maybe I was imagining things, maybe this is just how families work. I gaslit myself for years because the alternative, accepting that my own parents simply loved my brother more than me, was too painful to face. But graduation day? That was the day I couldn't lie to myself anymore. That was the day the truth hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. Because what they did to me that day wasn't just favoritism or neglect. It was cruelty. Pure, calculated cruelty that showed me exactly how little I meant to them. Graduation day started at 6 a.m. with my mother's voice echoing through the house, but she wasn't talking to me. "Jake, honey, do you want the blue tie or the silver one? We want you to look perfect for your big day." I could hear her bustling around his room, probably laying out his clothes like he was 5 years old instead of 24. Meanwhile, I got myself ready in silence, pressed my own graduation dress, did my own hair, because apparently getting 2 bachelor's degrees simultaneously, business and psychology, wasn't worth the same level of fuss as Jake's single communications degree that took him 5 years to complete. The house was already buzzing with activity by the time I came downstairs. Mom was hanging streamers in Jake's school colors, Dad was setting up some elaborate photo backdrop, and there were balloons everywhere with "Congratulations, graduate" written on them. Not graduates, plural. Graduate. Singular. As if I wasn't walking across that same stage in 3 hours. "Maya, could you help me move this table?" Mom asked without even looking at me, too busy arranging what looked like a professional photo shoot setup. I moved the table, hung more decorations, set up chairs, basically became the unpaid party planner for my brother's celebration. And the whole time, I kept waiting for someone to ask me how I was feeling about my graduation day. Nobody did. The guests started arriving around noon: aunts, uncles, grandparents, family friends, even some of Jake's high school teachers. Everyone was asking Jake about his future plans, congratulating him, taking pictures with him. I stood there in my graduation dress, clearly about to graduate from the same university, and I swear people looked right through me. It was like I was invisible, like I was just part of the furniture at Jake's party. "Where's Jake? We want to get some pictures before the ceremony." Uncle Mike called out, camera already in hand. Everyone gathered around Jake like he was some celebrity, and I watched from the corner as they took what felt like hundreds of photos. When someone finally remembered I existed too, they squeezed me into one awkward group shot where I'm practically falling off the edge of the frame. But here's what really got to me. My parents kept talking about the big surprise they had planned for after the ceremony. They were practically vibrating with excitement about it, whispering to each other, making mysterious phone calls, grinning like kids on Christmas morning. My dad kept checking his watch and saying things like, "I can't wait to see his face, and this is going to be the best day of his life." And me? I tried so hard not to care. I told myself I didn't need a big surprise, that graduating with honors and getting into graduate school was enough. But deep down, there was this tiny, pathetic hope that maybe, just maybe, they had remembered their other child who was also graduating today. Maybe they had planned something for me too. Maybe for once in my life, I would matter as much as Jake. The ceremony itself was torture. I watched my parents cheer and scream when Jake's name was called, watched my dad actually stand up and pump his fist in the air like Jake had just won the World Series. When my name was called, Maya Johnson, magna cum laude, dual degree, I heard polite clapping. That's it. Polite clapping like I was a stranger's kid they felt obligated to acknowledge. After the ceremony, everyone was taking more pictures, hugging Jake, telling him how proud they were of him. I got a few "good job, honey" comments and some awkward side hugs. But the energy, the excitement, the pure joy, all of that was reserved for Jake. It was his day, his moment, his celebration. I just happened to be graduating too. The ride home was Jake talking nonstop about how amazing the ceremony was while my parents hung on every word. I stared out the window, still clutching my diploma, wondering if this was what it felt like to be a ghost watching your own life happen to someone else. Back at the house, the energy was electric. You could feel the anticipation crackling in the air like lightning before a storm. Dad kept checking his phone and grinning at Mom, and she kept giggling like a teenager with a secret. Jake was soaking up all the attention from the relatives who were asking him about his plans, but you could tell he was distracted, probably wondering what this big surprise was that everyone kept hinting about. "All right, everyone, gather around," Dad announced, clapping his hands together. "It's time for Jake's graduation surprise." The way he said it, with such pride and excitement, you'd think he was about to announce that Jake had been crowned king of the world. Everyone rushed outside to the driveway, phones and cameras ready, chattering excitedly about what it could be. And there it was. Parked in our driveway with a giant red bow on top was a brand new Honda Civic, midnight blue, still gleaming with that fresh-off-the-lot shine. I'm talking brand new, not used, not a hand-me-down, not something they found on Craigslist. An actual new car with temporary tags and that new car smell you could probably detect from space. The screaming started immediately. "Oh my God, Jake. Oh my God." Mom was crying, actual tears streaming down her face like she was watching her son cure cancer instead of just receiving an expensive gift he didn't earn. Dad was recording everything on his phone, his voice shaking with emotion as he narrated, "This is Jake getting his graduation car. We're so proud of our boy." Jake's reaction was priceless, and I hate that I can even say that. His face went from confusion to shock to pure, unbridled joy in about 2 seconds. He ran to the car like a little kid on Christmas morning, running his hands over the hood, peering through the windows, checking out every single feature. "Are you serious? This is really mine? This is really mine." The family erupted. Aunts and uncles cheering, cousins whooping, grandparents dabbing their eyes with tissues. Uncle Mike was taking professional-level photos from every angle. My cousin Sarah was already posting videos to her Instagram story with captions like, "So proud of my amazing cousin." Everyone was hugging Jake, hugging my parents, congratulating them on raising such a wonderful son who deserved this so much. And my parents? God, my parents looked like they had just given their child the moon and stars. They were glowing with pride, beaming like they had accomplished something incredible themselves. Mom kept saying, "We've been planning this for months. We wanted it to be perfect for our graduate." Dad was explaining to everyone how they had researched the best first car, how they wanted something reliable and safe for their precious boy. Jake took everyone for rides around the block. I watched from the living room window as carload after carload of relatives got the Jake's new car experience, listening to him explain all the features like he was some kind of automotive expert. The horn honking, the laughter, the constant stream of congratulations and praise, it was like a parade in his honor. When they finally came back inside, the car was still the only topic of conversation. Jake was showing everyone pictures he had taken, already planning road trips, already talking about how this was going to change his life. And my parents just kept soaking up all the praise about what amazing, generous parents they were. "You guys are incredible," Aunt Linda gushed. "Jake is so lucky to have parents who believe in him like this. We just want to support our kids and help them succeed," Dad said, and I swear he puffed up his chest with pride when he said it. But here's the thing that made my stomach turn. They kept calling it supporting their kids, like plural, but they were only looking at Jake. Like I wasn't sitting right there. Like I wasn't also their kid who had also just graduated. Like the only child who mattered, who deserved support, who deserved to have his life changed by their generosity, was Jake. The car celebration went on for over an hour. 1 whole hour of my family losing their minds over my brother's gift. After an hour of the Jake car celebration extravaganza, things finally started winding down. Relatives were taking their final photos with the car, Jake was still walking around it like he couldn't believe it was real, and I was sitting on the porch steps wondering if anyone even remembered that I existed, let alone that I had also graduated today. That's when Mom suddenly snapped her fingers like she had just remembered something important. "Oh, Maya, we got something for you too," she called out, and I swear her tone was so different from the excitement she'd had all day. It was like obligatory. Like someone had just reminded her she had forgotten to feed the dog. Everyone turned to look at me, and I could see it in their faces. They had completely forgotten that I was also graduating today. Some of them looked embarrassed, some looked surprised, and some looked like they were just realizing for the first time that there were 2 graduates in this family. "Really? I asked, and I hated how hopeful I sounded. I hated that after everything, after years of this treatment, I still had this pathetic little spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, they had put some thought into celebrating me too. Dad disappeared into the house and came back a few minutes later with a small gift bag. Not wrapped. Not presented with any ceremony. Just a basic gift bag from CVS with some tissue paper sticking out the top. The contrast was so stark it was almost comical. Jake got a car with a giant bow and a whole production, and I got a drugstore gift bag that looked like it was grabbed at the last minute. "We saw this and thought of you," Mom said, but her voice had none of the trembling emotion she'd had when presenting Jake's gift. She sounded like she was handing me a grocery list. I took the bag, and I could feel everyone watching me. Some of them looked uncomfortable, probably realizing how absolutely ridiculous this looked after the car presentation. But my parents seemed oblivious, or maybe they just didn't care. I pulled out the tissue paper and reached inside, and what I found made my blood freeze in my veins. It was a book. But not just any book. It was Cooking for Dummies, still with a Barnes and Noble clearance sticker on it for $4.99. A book about cooking. For someone who has been a vegetarian for 6 years. A fact I've mentioned approximately 1,000,000 times at family dinners where I had to explain why I wasn't eating the meat dishes. But wait, it gets worse. I opened the front cover and there was an inscription. Not to me. To someone named Jennifer from Aunt Susan with a note that said, "Hope this helps with your new apartment. Love you." Someone had tried to scribble out the name Jennifer and write Maya above it, but you could still clearly see the original name underneath. This wasn't just a thoughtless gift. This was a regifted, clearance book that they had picked up somewhere, probably found lying around the house, and decided to give to me because they had completely forgotten they needed to get me something until the last possible second. They didn't even bother to get a new book. They gave me someone else's gift with my name scribbled over the real recipient's name. I stood there holding this book, staring at Jennifer's crossed-out name, and something inside me just broke. Not cracked, not bent, but completely shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Because this wasn't just about the gift. This was about what it represented. This was proof, physical evidence, that I meant so little to my parents that they couldn't even be bothered to think about me for 5 minutes. Jake got a car they had been planning for months. I got a regifted clearance book about cooking meat dishes for a vegetarian. Jake got tears of pride and joy. I got "We saw this and thought of you," which was obviously a lie because they clearly hadn't thought of me at all. The silence was deafening. Even the relatives who had been chattering nonstop all day seemed to sense that something was deeply wrong with this picture. My cousin Sarah was staring at the ground. Uncle Mike had put his camera away. Even Jake had stopped admiring his car and was looking at me with what might have been embarrassment. "Thank you," I managed to choke out, because what else was I supposed to say? What do you say when your parents hand you a piece of garbage and expect you to be grateful for it? But inside, I was screaming. Inside, I was falling apart. Because that book, that stupid regifted book with someone else's name scratched out, was the final proof that I would never, ever matter to these people. Not ever. I stood there holding that book, and the world around me started to feel muffled, like I was underwater. I could hear people talking, but their voices sounded distant and distorted. Someone said, "That's nice, honey," in that fake cheerful voice adults use when they're trying to cover up an awkward situation. Someone else coughed. Jake jingled his new car keys. The sound of those keys jingling was like nails on a chalkboard. Jingle, jingle, jingle. The sound of his happiness, his success, his worth. And there I was, clutching a $4.99 clearance book with another girl's name scratched out, trying not to vomit from the shame burning in my stomach. "Well, I think we should head inside for cake," Mom announced, clapping her hands together like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just delivered the most humiliating moment of my life in front of my entire extended family. Everyone started shuffling toward the house, grateful for an excuse to escape the awkwardness. But I couldn't move. My feet felt glued to the ground, and my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the book. That's when the memories started flooding back like a dam had burst in my brain. I was 8 years old, watching Jake open his birthday present, a brand new bike with streamers and a bell. My present that day was a coloring book from the dollar store. The same coloring book I had seen in our junk drawer for months. I was 12, watching my parents beam with pride at Jake's middle school graduation while I sat in the back row because they forgot to save me a seat up front with them. I was 16, listening to them plan Jake's elaborate Sweet 16 party while they told me I could have some friends over for pizza for my birthday. I was 18, watching them cry with joy as Jake opened his acceptance letter to college while my full scholarship letter sat unopened on the kitchen counter for 3 days. I was 20, hearing them brag to the neighbors about Jake's internship while they introduced me as our other daughter who's also in college. Every single memory was crashing into me at once, and I realized this wasn't just about favoritism or even neglect. This was about complete and total erasure. I wasn't just the less important child, I wasn't considered at all. I was furniture. I was wallpaper. I was something they remembered existed only when someone pointed it out to them. The worst part was watching my relatives' faces. Aunt Linda looked genuinely uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact with me. Uncle Mike was suddenly very interested in his phone. My cousin Sarah whispered something to her mom, and they both glanced at me with what looked like pity. Even Jake's old high school friends seemed to realize something was deeply wrong with what had just happened. But my parents? They were already moving on, already talking about cake and coffee, already forgetting that they had just publicly humiliated their daughter in front of everyone who mattered to our family. Dad was still glowing with pride about the car. Mom was bustling around like the perfect hostess. Neither of them looked at me or seemed to notice that I was falling apart in real time. That's when it hit me with crystal clarity. This would never change. Ever. I could graduate summa cum laude from Harvard, I could cure cancer, I could win a Nobel Prize, and they would still hand me someone else's regifted garbage while throwing parades for Jake's mediocrity. I looked down at that book again, at Jennifer's name bleeding through the scribbled-out ink, and I felt something inside me die. It was the part of me that had been hoping, the part that had been trying, the part that had been believing that maybe someday I would be enough for them. That part was gone now, and in its place was something harder, something angrier, something that was done begging for scraps of love from people who would never see me as worth loving. The sound of Jake's keys jingling one more time sealed it. I was done. I followed everyone inside, still clutching that book, and watched them gather around the kitchen table where Mom had set up Jake's graduation cake. It was a beautiful 3-layer chocolate cake with "Congratulations, Jake" written in blue frosting with little graduation cap decorations. Professional quality, probably cost more than some people's weekly groceries. Everyone was taking pictures of Jake with his cake, and that's when something inside me just snapped. Maybe it was the way they were all acting like nothing had happened. Maybe it was watching Jake pose with his cake while I stood in the corner holding my regifted trash. Maybe it was 22 years of swallowed anger finally erupting. Why do you hate me so much? The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them, cutting through all the chatter and laughter like a knife. The room went completely silent. You could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking, someone's stomach growling. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at me. "Maya," Mom hissed, her face flushing red. "What are you talking about? Don't be ridiculous." Ridiculous. I laughed, and it came out bitter and sharp. You give Jake a brand new car, and you give me a regifted clearance book with someone else's name in it. A cookbook. For a vegetarian. And I'm being ridiculous. Dad set down his coffee cup with a hard clink. "Maya, lower your voice. We have guests." "Oh, now you care about embarrassing someone in front of guests?" I held up the book, making sure everyone could see the scratched-out name on the inside cover. "You just handed me this piece of garbage in front of everyone and expected me to smile and say thank you. But I'm the one who should be embarrassed." Uncle Mike cleared his throat uncomfortably. Aunt Linda was studying her shoes like they contained the secrets of the universe. I could see some of the relatives slowly backing toward the door, sensing this family explosion was about to get messy. "We got you something nice," Mom said, but her voice was shaky now. "You're being ungrateful." Ungrateful. The laugh that came out of me was almost manic. "For 22 years, I have watched you treat Jake like he's God's gift to humanity while treating me like I'm some kind of burden you're stuck with. And you want to talk about grateful?" "That's not true," Dad said, but he wouldn't look at me. We love both our children equally. Equally. I was shouting now, and I didn't care. You threw Jake a party for graduating high school with C's. I graduated valedictorian and got a sheet cake from the grocery store. You drove him to 12 college visits. I had to apply a loan. You just gave him a car and gave me literal garbage, and you want to tell me you love us equally. Jake finally spoke up, and do you know what he said? Maya, you're making everyone uncomfortable. Can you just be happy for me? Be happy for him. Be happy for him. After everything, after this whole day of being invisible, after being handed someone else's trash while he got a car, he wanted me to be happy for him. Happy for you? I turned to look at him. Really look at him. When have you ever been happy for me, Jake? When have you ever stood up for me? When have you ever even noticed how differently they treat us? He shrugged, actually shrugged. I don't know what you're talking about. Mom and Dad are good parents. To you, I screamed. They're good parents to you. To me, they're strangers who happened to give birth to me by accident. Maya Elizabeth Johnson. Mom's voice was sharp, now angry. You stop this right now. You're being dramatic and hurtful, and I won't stand for it in my house. Your house, I repeated slowly. Right. Your house, your golden child, your perfect family. Where exactly do I fit in this picture, Mom? What am I to you people? The silence that followed was deafening. Nobody answered me. Not Mom, not Dad, not Jake, not a single person in that room could answer the question of what I meant to this family. That silence was my answer. Dad finally spoke, and his voice was cold. If you can't be part of this family without causing drama, maybe you need to think about whether you want to be part of it at all. And there it was. The threat I had been hearing my whole life, spoken out loud for the first time. Behave or leave. Accept your place or get out. Don't ask for love, don't demand respect, don't expect to matter, or we'll just pretend you don't exist at all. Well, guess what? I was done pretending too. I stood there staring at my father, at this man who had just told me to leave if I couldn't accept being treated like garbage, and something shifted inside me. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't even anger. It was clarity. Pure, crystal clear clarity. You know what? I said, and my voice was calm now, steady. You're right. I walked past all of them, past their shocked faces and their uncomfortable silence, and went straight to my room. I could hear Mom calling after me, her voice that same fake concerned tone she used when relatives were watching, but I didn't stop. I grabbed my laptop, my phone charger, my wallet, and the diploma I had worked so hard for. Everything else could wait. When I came back downstairs, they were all still standing there like statues in a museum of dysfunction. I placed the book on the kitchen counter, right next to Jake's beautiful graduation cake. I'm keeping the diploma, I said. I earned that. But you can keep your gift for Jennifer, whoever she is. Maya, don't be like this, Mom started, but I held up my hand. I'm done, I said simply. I'm done trying to earn love from people who will never give it. I'm done making myself smaller so Jake can feel bigger. I'm done celebrating him while I disappear. I'm just done. I looked at Jake then, really looked at him. Enjoy your car, Jake. Enjoy being the center of their universe. I hope it makes you happy. The sad thing was, I meant it. I wasn't even angry at him anymore. I just felt sorry for him, for someone who never learned to see past his own reflection. Where are you going to go? Dad asked, and I almost laughed at the concern in his voice. Now he cared. Now, when I was leaving, he suddenly wanted to know about my life. I have friends, I said. People who actually notice when I'm in the room. People who remember I'm vegetarian. People who know my name without having to scratch out someone else's first. I walked toward the door, and that's when I turned back one last time. The whole family was standing there, my parents looking angry and embarrassed, Jake confused and uncomfortable, the relatives pretending they weren't witnessing a family implosion. You want to know the saddest part? I said. I would have been happy with nothing. If you had just hugged me today, told me you were proud of me, actually watched me walk across that stage, that would have been enough. I never needed a car. I just needed you to see me. The tears were streaming down my face now, but I didn't care. But you couldn't even do that. You couldn't even pretend for one day that I mattered. So thank you, actually. Thank you for making it so clear that I need to build a life without you in it. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. My best friend Sarah picked me up 20 minutes later, and when I collapsed in her car sobbing, she didn't ask questions. She just drove me to her apartment, made me tea, and let me fall apart on her couch. That was 3 months ago. Section 8, closing message. So here I am now, sitting in my own apartment, a small studio that I'm paying for with my graduate assistantship. It's not much, but it's mine. Every piece of furniture, every dish, every choice about what goes on these walls, it's all mine. And nobody here treats me like I'm invisible. I haven't spoken to my parents since that day. They've called a few times, sent some texts that basically amount to, sorry you felt that way, but you overreacted. Not, sorry we hurt you. Not, sorry we failed you. Just sorry I had feelings about being treated like trash. Jake sent me one message, Mom and Dad are really upset. You should apologize. I blocked his number after that. But you want to know the surprising part? I'm okay. Actually, I'm more than okay. For the first time in my life, I'm not spending every moment trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. I'm not twisting myself into shapes hoping someone will finally notice me. I'm not apologizing for existing. I've built something I never had before, a chosen family. My best friend Sarah, who showed up for me that night without hesitation. My roommate from sophomore year who helped me move into this apartment. My study group from grad school who actually celebrated when I got accepted into the PhD program. My partner, who I met 2 months ago and who looks at me like I'm the only person in the room, because to them I am. These people know I'm vegetarian. They remember my birthday. They ask me how I'm doing and actually listen to the answer. They celebrate my wins and support me through my losses. They see me. Really see me. And I'm learning something important. Not being loved by your parents doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means they weren't capable of loving you the way you deserved. And that's their failure, not yours. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're the overlooked child, the afterthought, the one who never seems to be enough no matter what you do, I want you to hear this. You are not the problem. You never were. You are worthy of love, respect, and celebration exactly as you are. You don't have to earn basic human dignity from your own family. And if they can't give it to you, it's okay to walk away and find people who will. It's going to hurt. God, it's going to hurt so much. There are still nights when I cry because I wanted so badly for them to choose me, to love me, to see me. But every day it hurts a little less, and every day I build something stronger in its place. Some families are born. Some families are built. And sometimes the family you build is the one that saves your life. I still have that diploma, by the way. It's framed on my wall now, and I look at it every morning. Not because it represents their approval, they never gave me that anyway. But because it represents what I did in spite of them. It represents every time I got up after they knocked me down. It represents my strength, my resilience, my refusal to become small just because they needed me to be. That diploma is mine. This life is mine. And I'm finally free to live it on my own terms. So here's to everyone out there still fighting for scraps of love from people who should be giving it freely. Here's to everyone who's tired of being invisible. Here's to choosing yourself when nobody else will. You are seen. You are valued. You are enough. And you always have been.